Tonight we will go deep into the realm of the unknown and question everything as we search for the truth. We will explore the possibility of countless phenomena within the ultraspectrum, and together we will learn that it is all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and it is a live stream broadcast. If you have a question, send me a super chat or become a YouTube member. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association. Take a seat, relax, get ready, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the TinFoil Hat. Look at this hair of mine. Today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2023, and I, Ryan Stacey, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator in Ontario, Canada, a citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. For those who are already YouTube channel members or thinking of becoming one, remember that you get priority over the questions tonight. You can also get behind-the-scenes extended footage, bloopers, and access to members-only programs. All you have to do is click the big blue button that says join, and while you're there, hit the bell so you can be notified when all members of the Experiencer Support Association release latest content. Okay, let's get the party started. Our guest for Season 5, Episode 5 is Cheryl Costa. Cheryl is a two-service military veteran, the United States Air Force, United States Navy, and a retired professional from the aerospace industry. Cheryl, as a journalist, wrote the widely popular UFO column, New York Skies, for Syracuse NewTimes.com between 2013 and 2019. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in the entertainment, writing, and production from the State University of New York at Empire State College. She was awarded the Researcher of the Year in 2018 by the International UFO Congress. All right, Cheryl, put on your tinfoil hat. We're about to go down a rabbit hole.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Good. Thanks for bearing with the intro there, and good job, Chris. Yeah, leave you alone for 1 second, and but you got that. We're good. So we're going to start with our icebreaker question. Chris, if you mind playing the little jingle there. All right, so this question is brought to us by our support group, Experiencers Anonymous. What is the difference between UFO activity and paranormal activity, and are they connected?
I think they are connected, for one. Two, I don't really distinguish between them. I consider them both a function of consciousness. And what we used to call, and I used to live in a Buddhist monastery, what we used to call phenomenal existence. And this is just a phenomenal happening, whether it's technological or spiritual, woo-woo, whatever. It's something that is not of our normal day-to-day, what we think of as reality. But one lesson I can give you is, and this comes from one of my lamas as well, is that if more people were to open their view of reality a little bit more and make it a little bit more elastic, most people on a day-to-day basis would be aware of far more paranormal stuff going around them. But most people walk around with tunnel vision, and they don't see things, or they refuse to see things.
Mm-hmm. And I can share that. I started as a paranormal investigator. Always been interested in paranormal. I got dragged into this UFO circuit with my time by MUFON. So I'm a former MUFON guy. But now I've come full circle with my research, where with the Experiencer Support Association, my data shows that it could be connected, and that's through the experiencer. And when we look at the definitions of things, we're just simply not labeling them properly. So paranormal simply means not normal. So if you, in my opinion, if a craft, had extraterrestrials piloting it, that's not normal. So therefore paranormal would be UFOs could be under that paranormal umbrella. So, and that's something that always pissed off MUFON when I brought that to their attention, but that's in the past.
No, they've always been cranky about the woo-woo side of it. They really have. And if they always want to crawl into the cockpit, and they're not understanding that maybe there isn't a cockpit.
Well, let's before I get to my next question, let's elaborate on that. Like, why do you think that is? Like, any organization who does well investigating one topic, specifically the UFO topic,
Mm-hmm.
why ignore this data or association with it?
Well, okay. My only, I was never on the inside with MUFON. As a journalist, they gave me the courtesy of giving me a membership, because I couldn't legally join it because our newspaper had a very draconian conflict of interest clause.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I was doing my research, they were kind enough to give me an ID that I could log into the database at a non-researcher level and be able to get information for which to write my columns about. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What I was exposed with MUFON is there's an awful lot of hardware guys, very rigid in that. I found a lot of them to be, this is trying not to be judgmental, very right-wing oriented. So they have a very restricted view on the way they look at things, and they want it science. When my spouse Linda and I produced our first book of UFO statistics, the noise that came out of MUFON was, where did these women come from? They fall out of the sky or something, And then we began having pushback from a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Saying, well, you don't do case studies. You don't do field studies. You're not a field investigator. And our position was, Linda has all the science degrees. I've got the arts and entertainment top hat and a cane kind of thing. But I have, from my military experience and in my time at Lockheed Martin, I'm an analyst. Okay. So between the two of us, putting our skills together, we decided to take a completely different approach to studying the problem, which is perfectly good in the scientific community. There's other ways to study a problem more than just doing field investigations. And field investigations, the way I look at it, they're like individual autopsies. Okay. We decided to do the big data approach. Instead of looking at one autopsy, we decided to look at the disease model, is how big it was. Okay. We set out to measure the scale of the phenomena. They're all looking for that little piece of gotcha evidence that says this is real. Okay. Uh-huh. And so they've never really wanted to hear, they never really had a lot of love for experiencers, for one, and until relatively recently. Kathleen Marden has done a great deal of work with them. And the other thing is they never really wanted to hear any of the woo-woo side of this stuff. And some of that is probably the better explanation than a piece of hardware. Okay. That's just my tact on it.
So I can speak to that as well, being on the inside. So just to summarize my background real quick, not to take over the show, but like I started off as a field investigator, but then I eventually became the national chief investigator for MUFON Canada. Okay. I spent some time as the director of field investigating trainer for MUFON National. So I worked with Jan Harzan and all that other stuff. And I was in the middle of rewriting the field investigator manual before I exited. So I'm not going to get into my exit, but I feel, and I know from firsthand knowledge, that what you suspect is true, because I've been involved in marketing decisions. And if it doesn't get you the clickbait, then they don't want to do it. They want these fast things. And I have a feeling that the reason why you got pressure, because I received pressure, because I started doing my own stats, my own data, and it was competing against what they were doing, and they wanted to be the top guys. So I can relate to that. And the part with the experiencers, I focused a lot with, I worked with Kathleen Marden as well. And that's where I got introduced to this experiencer phenomenon. That's when I started to realize that there's paranormal involvement, there's consciousness, all this stuff is connected. So I spent a lot of time running the experiencer research team for Canada division. And then when I exited MUFON, I decided to create the Experiencer Support Association to continue that as a Canadian substitute. until MUFON gets their shit together and wants to work with us. But that's my opinion on that. Okay. Any comment on that? Sorry.
No, I don't want to throw any stones at them.
Yeah, I don't want to throw any stones.
Their convention's about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, and they would not book me this year. And I just released the largest collection of analyzed data ever published in human history, and they weren't interested. So,
yeah. Okay, we're not going to get into that. So
no, it's not that. Let's go. Actually, instead of going for the UFOs,
yeah.
Let's start with the experiencers and the paranormal side of this thing.
Sure.
Okay. Because I can honestly say my first sighting was with my parents when I was 12 years old in 1964. Okay. On an August afternoon, we saw a sphere parked out there. And then we decided to leave. It was one of these things, you didn't see that again until you saw one of the advanced Star Trek movies, But looking back, my first experience with them was when I was about 4 or 5 years old. This is long before most of us ever heard of Greys. Okay. Right. And I clearly remember, as clearly as I can see my mother's face, these guys with really big heads and big eyes, little ones, trying to take me someplace, take me through some kind of a door, okay, or a round door, so to speak. And that I clearly remember. Now, additional context since that time? Yes, I'm an experiencer. Do I remember most of it? No, I have screen memories. And then a shrink a number of years ago was in there trying to help me with my combat PTSD and stuck her finger in the 220 socket and realized, what have I touched by hypnotizing this person?
Right.
Okay. That's as much as far as I go there. That part is a bit on the personal side. I will relate pieces of it here and there, but I don't like to go into details on it. The thing is I grew up in a family of clairvoyance. Clairvoyance runs down the maternal side of my family. So most of my cousins shut it off, didn't want to have anything to do with it. And there was a handful of us that embraced it and tried to follow it to where it would lead. Okay. And so I was always aware of a much bigger world. One of my cousins, he's died now, he passed now. We were both had the common joke was there was a hell of a lot more going on around us than the average person is aware of. Mm-hmm. Okay. And isn't necessarily what you see sometimes. Sometimes it's what you don't see or what you feel. Okay. Or what you don't feel. Okay. And that was a thing that kept me open. So for me, part of the thing I was trying to keep my sanity when I was in high school was I went to the library and got every book on paranormal, particularly ESP, telepathy, that type of thing, fringing a little bit into the metaphysical arts, that type of thing, and tried to understand why my two other cousins, myself and these two other cousins have this second sight or a sense. Okay. So I've been close to it over the year. In fact, I've had several marriages over the years, so to speak. And I literally had to take my this last spouse. I had taken a 7-year sabbatical in a Buddhist monastery in my 40s. And I used to be 44 years as a Wicca priestess. Okay. I was deep in the woo-woo, as they say. And when this spouse and I, after I came out of the monastery life, this one dear lady was getting very close to me, and I had to sit her down one Saturday morning and said, look, there are mornings, if you stay with me, there are going to be mornings I'm going to get up in the morning. I'm not going to know what year it is, what day it is. Okay. There are going to be other days you're going to find me, and I'm going to be black and blue because looks like somebody beat me up. Okay. And she says, and fortunately, she had been a member of the Fortean Society. Do you know what that is? Okay. Charles Fort.
Yeah.
Okay. So she had been a member of the Fortean Society in the 80s. So she was actually pretty well versed in this stuff. He says, "Oh, okay, you got hijinks in the night, huh?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And she says, "Okay." He was good with that. So, so the thing I've learned over years, I'm 70 years old, so I'm really aware of this gift since about 10. So for 60 years, I'm aware of a lot of goofy stuff going around.
Hmm.
Are they always coming here in ships? No, they don't always come here in ships. There are many nights we know that one of us has been touched by them, but it's not like they landed a ship on top of the apartment complex. Okay. It's okay. Think of it this way from a consciousness viewpoint. Our soul essence, our spiritual essence, the thing that gives us life, is like a drop of water. And consciousness is this infinite ocean of other drops of water that we're wading through on a day-to-day basis. And we're not, and because we have this structured illusion that we are people, we don't think we're not aware of this bigger thing going on. Okay, so through consciousness, anything can be manifested. As a retired witch, I can tell you, we practice the art of turning thought into form. Mystics, shamans, yogis, high mages of sorts have been manipulating the machine code of reality for millennia. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If we can do it, and they're anywhere near more advanced intellectually on that side of it, what I'm going to call the quasi-spiritual side of things, then they certainly can. Okay? So are some of these things physical ships? Yes. Are some of them manifestations that look like a physical ship? Yes. And are some of them are just that weird thing that we don't know and it just sort of seems to evaporate on its own? Clearly a metaphysical or consciousness manifestation. I know a lot of people don't like to talk about the CE5 guy, Greer. Okay. There people say good things about him. There's people say bad things about him. I kind of in the middle. Okay. He's a pretty good guy. And the CE5, for everything else you might say about him, the CE5 process works. Okay. And number of the people that I've talked to that have been through a formal CE5 program or done a lot of it. And remember, this is somebody who now has come out of a monastery, knows a great deal about deep meditation and the things you can see or experience when you're in this deep meditation stuff. Yeah, they say, well, these beings just appeared out here, you know? Yeah, all right. I had no problem with that. My Lama didn't have any problem with that either, because all of it is a manifestation. Everything we are is a manifestation. It just feels real. Yeah. How's that for an explanation? Most people don't get an explanation that solid, I don't think.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's, I thought we were going to talk UFOs, but we're not. I don't even know if I want to go to UFOs now, because this is the stuff that I do enjoy talking about, because it maybe helps explain the reasons why studying UFOs and knowing UFOs is so difficult at times. And because it's just unidentified flying objects, so we really don't know what the object is until we.
As much as I hate the UAP terminology, that's probably closer to what it is.
Yeah, and now they're calling it anonymous phenomenon or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Once it's starting to get better and better to kind of blanket everything, but
they're getting more and more woo themselves. If you think about it,
and it's fascinating because that's what they avoided for so long. Now all of a sudden, they're trending. But with Greer, I've met Greer at a cosmic expo that we put on here in Ontario, and I participated in one of his meditation things as well. And I've tried CE5 in my experience as well. And it is interesting, but the analytical mind of mine always looks into trying to figure out if it's a coincidence, because there's lots of air traffic, and that's how we figure out these things in the sky and whatnot too. But the thing that I enjoyed the most was the group thought, the group mind. Everybody wanted to manifest the same thing. And even though they were manifesting something, and this is part of my studies, which I haven't really formulated yet, but I wonder if we could have them all have the same mindset and same manifestation while doing a CE5, if the same objects could appear. Because if they're transmedium or they're physical, like there's some supporting data that needs to be done. But I often find, so I'm kind of stuck in a loop here, but I'm off the challenge that I'm finding is that they're either doing a full-blown experience your contact stuff, or you're doing a full-blown investigation without any experience or stuff. There's no in between. So you don't have an investigative team with the experiencers trying
you don't have an away team.
Yeah.
With a mix of skills.
Yeah. And if you had a combination of that, then they would be able to verify in real time that when this light shows up, that it's not an aircraft. Because by the time you get the picture, by the time you go and do the investigation, all that data is gone.
Okay. You hit on something there. And MUFON, not to complain about them, but to their limit there, they're trying to present a scientific face of this thing, good scientific hypothesis and study. Okay, from their view. I mean, they're testing soil samples, they're testing the compression of the soil, they're measuring electromagnetics, radiation, they're doing all that CSI stuff. Okay,
allegedly.
And well, yeah, okay, but
I know from experience, that's why I said allegedly. But yes,
okay, but they're putting on the face that we're technical. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so they look at those of us who do the paranormal stuff, and or metaphysical, if you prefer that term, and they are very quick with the line, well, you don't have any credibility standing as far as what anybody else will experience, will understand. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's always the answer we get. Okay,
I always looked at them as like, you just can't comprehend this because it's complicated.
Well, you also have to understand that the Western culture is pretty much been dipped in a Christian Judeo mindset. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if I were to go to a Native American reservation with anybody that's even mildly traditional, they would look at it probably more like me. Okay. I was having a conversation with a guy from the Onondaga Nation back when I was writing my column in Syracuse, New York. Excuse me. And he says, my people have been touched for over 4,000 years. And I said, I don't doubt it. And everything was fine until white man showed up, so, this is what we're up against. I've run with the shamanic types and I've been involved with remote viewing. Remember you were talking about the analytical side there a minute ago with the CE5, the analytical mind kicks in. This is the hardest thing we have to, when I train people who do remote viewing, I have to point out to them that the moment you are starting to get something and you're getting the knowledge of this target and you stop a second and start trying to think of how is this thing working. You just started conceptualizing and you just blew the whole experiment. You have to stay in that etherical frame of mind and not be in a conceptual mind. And the problem with CE5 is your average person off the street, even though maybe they've been taught to do the protocols and everything like this, still has not meditated down to the point where they can resist doing the conceptual, shift the conceptual mind and start trying to analyze something. Mm-hmm. I've got a class of advanced mystical students I've been teaching now for about 6 months. They were already well-accomplished people, and I'm fine tuning them. And the hardest thing I have, even with them, was to get them up to 30 minutes a day of meditation, so they're able to drop into a mode where they can quiet their mind and get past the day-to-day chatter of our subconscious minds. And that makes the big difference for whether or not you can maintain that look at, say you're doing a CE5, maintain that, or do a good remote viewing and not starting to analyze it and blow it to pieces. That's the hard part. Our Western minds, you can't get away from it. You can't go into a bar without 12 screens being up there with sports games, things like that. Everything in our culture is set up to distract you.
Okay? Oh yeah, 110%.
So that's the biggest problem we have. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I just noticed that one of our members had made a comment here, so I just wanted to give them a chance. This person says CE5 works. Lots of people at Fatima saw the miracle and half didn't. Explain that. I can. You can only see it if you believe. That ain't. I think you mean science. That ain't science. Okay, I can talk to that. Okay.
We had a story, and I've had two stories like this when I was a journalist. There was a lake up in the Adirondacks of upstate New York. Understand, when I was writing my newspaper column, New York State was my beat for UFO talk. Okay. And that's all I did with my column was I talked UFO topic matter, put the politics of UFOs, all that stuff. That was my beat. And there were like 10 people at this lake deep in the Adirondack Mountains. This is not a lake that's got cottages around it. It is all woods. There's a few alcoves where little camps had been set up, but they're mostly hunters' camps. Okay. And then they go home and they put out the fires and that's it, So these 10 people were up there. This thing comes down over the lake, is hovering out there over the lake, about 150 feet over the lake. 3 of them could see this thing for the technical thing that it was. It was like sitting there looking at a helicopter. Okay. 3 of them saw it, 3 or 4 of them saw it in a context of a cartoon. Their mind couldn't wrap around it, and it just imagined it the way it wanted to imagine it. Okay. That's one of those things. If you sometimes wake up someplace where you probably wouldn't normally wake up, and as you're waking up, you see some piece of furniture in there, maybe you're the wrong way, and you think it's somebody or something like that. It's that kind of thing. And there were these 3 or 4 other people at the end of those 10 people that were looking straight at it and couldn't see it.
Now, so I'll kind of share my thoughts on that.
Please.
When I worked with MUFON, I was learning how to, my responsibility was to teach people how to determine whether what has happened is a known object. So we're trying to measure it against objects. When I got into the experiencer realm, trying to understand, what is happening to the experiencers. So now that I'm in this experiencer support association, the whole idea here is I'm studying the people and trying to understand why they are able to have these experiences while others are not. So I've learned through my study that there are some characteristics that show some patterns between the makeup of these individuals biologically, that they possess they have the ability to see these things because the pattern is the same. So in that instance, if you have some people that aren't on the spectrum or aren't able to see these things, then it makes sense why others can't. And I'm trying to dial in and figure out what exactly it is that makes us the way that we are, so that way we can use that. Because coming back to the CE5 point, wouldn't it be amazing if we could have everyone who met that criteria together to do the CE5? Because if they're actually making contact, if that works, then in theory, those groups of people should be able to do that. Same thing for a seance, which is no different than a CE5.
Yes.
Okay? You're just using a Ouija board instead of tones, and you're looking for spirit or ghost instead of UFOs, which could be the same thing, but you're still using the mind. So the study that I've done between those people, they're no different because they're human beings and things like that, and they share many characteristics. But then you also have some variances in there where you might also have some people that when I say on the spectrum, I call it the ultra spectrum, which is a classification system that I've made, that you're going to have some people that may not know that they're gifted. They may not know that they have the ability to be clairvoyant. And they have a poltergeist experience, right? You know what I'm saying? And they think that it's ghosts because that's what we're told and that's what we're shown. But
until my mother told me what my gift was, I didn't understand why there were all these other people walking around in the house as a kid. Little kid, yeah.
So if you just imagine the whole marketing setting, it's like, hey, this place is haunted. Everybody come here. We're all going to do the seance. And then you got a group of people that actually believe in it. Some people that are curious about it don't realize that they're clairvoyant when they might, not even think it, but they are naturally. And then you get some people that are just interested and they just show up. So you got this variance, but they're all coming together to try and move these things. And they believe that it's ghost. But what if it's not ghosts? What if it's them? And we're manipulating the objects because we have the ability to do that.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Yes. But the one thing where the people who can't see it now, I suspect you have in your research, there's a phenomena in well-documented phenomena in psychological circles where the loose name for it is the unexpected syndrome.
Okay.
Imagine you come in, you're looking for your car keys, and and they're right there on the coffee table, but you didn't see them.
Yeah.
There's the famous experiment where they had a basketball game. They videotaped the basketball game, and halfway through the basketball game, a guy in a gorilla suit runs out onto the court. Okay. Most people did not see the gorilla. Okay. And it's the same thing that this is what I always hooked that whole idea where somebody is quite literally looking right at the bloody phenomena and they can't see it. Now, there's another hook to that, though. Remember what I was talking about, what the Lama said, people's view of reality? It's not, to use my Lama's terms, not as elastic as others.
Right.
Okay. And what one person has to do before they start jumping into things like CE5, tarot cards or Ouija boards or any of that stuff is they need to go through some exercises to be willing to open up their view of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't matter if you're sitting there trying to do something like a CE5 and saying, well, by golly, I'm not getting anything. If your mind is psychologically turning it off, that's it. And the problem is in our culture, okay, Western culture particularly, honey, there's nothing under the bed. Honey, there's no monster in the closet. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they tell you all these things aren't real. Oh no, there's nothing there.
But
okay. So we're programmed from a young age by Western parents to not accept things that we see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's a big problem. My mother didn't do that with me. Okay, like I said, my grandmother was a high somebody in the spiritualist church. I stayed with her in my summertime. She'd have her old lady friends over there, levitating tables and things. I grew up around it, so I was more open to it. So was one of my cousins. Okay, so it's a matter of how you're conditioned. Okay, yeah. And it's a form of brainwashing, if you ask me.
Okay. Yeah, especially if they're aware that that is the reality and they're conditioning us to think else otherwise. And then fast forward many years when you start to, and then you discover that you had this power all along, and then.
I'll give you one along that line. I was about 5th grade. Mm-hmm. One of the guys in our class, his dad, had been going to work with a pain in his gut, right? Turned out he had appendicitis. It burst. It killed him. Okay. A couple of weeks after the guys, and I was in Catholic school. Okay. The nuns thought me and one other kid in my class thought we were the spawn of Satan because we had the sight, and they knew we had the sight. And so one day this girl says, The guy has come back from his bereavement leave, right? He's on the other side of the classroom. And this girl stands up during the actual religious class that we had in the morning and said, well, what happened to Bobby's dad? Where is he now that he's died? And then none, of course, said, well, he's in heaven with God.
Right.
And me and Leo were looking over at the guy, and his dead father is sitting on the file cabinet looking proudly at his son, and we're going, okay, you see the problem here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like I said, there's this bigger world that most people have been programmed not to see. And the UFOs fall right in that thing. There was a great line in a movie back in the 80s. Okay, you're probably too young to remember it, but the cute line of the thing that the UFO came down, and the one guy looked at his buddy and said, "My God, did you see that? No, and you didn't either." Okay, and that is the problem with this stuff. We've been taught no, and the psyop on at least the American people has been there's no such thing. Only kooks, nuts, and crackpots report this stuff. Mm-hmm. I had an article about one of my recent books, the statistics of a specific state, and they did this lovely article in this paper, and all the commentaries at the end of the article that were coming from readers, and they were calling us kooks, nuts, crackpots, delusionals, people who need to be in a straitjacket or on some heavy medication. This was the attitude. Now, the argument my wife, who's got the degree in psychology, says, and what makes them qualified to call somebody crazy? Yeah. They don't have a doctorate degree, and they're not qualified as a psychiatrist. They aren't permitted to call somebody crazy, but they do. And we use that term too loosely in our culture.
Yeah, we certainly do. And we don't have many psychologists that are willing to tackle this phenomenon without risking.
That gets me in another soapbox. About 5 years ago, a friend of mine who's a therapist, I had to go see him about, I was having some difficulty with my blood family. Okay. Mm-hmm. And while we were talking, I brought in one of the books we'd published. We call it the Pink Book. It's one of our desk references, and a big scientific book, and gave him a copy. And we got talking about the UFO stuff in the session. And in the course of the discussion, I said, I've already, as a journalist, I've interviewed over a dozen people who are experiencers. Okay. What they told me, they could not have imagined, believe me. And so I said, they want to go talk to somebody about it, and nobody will talk to them. And he said, let's together write a letter. We'll send it to New York State Association of Social Workers. We wrote them 4 times. Very sane business letter. Crickets.
Right.
Okay. They won't talk to us. And we said, guys, there's a big stress factor out here you don't know about. Can we come and give you a free presentation to help you understand? There's a whole bunch of people that need your help, but you're going to have to be open to this. And no, they weren't interested.
Why do you think, though? Why do you think they weren't interested?
Well, they laughed at John Mack. He was a psychiatrist at Harvard. They laughed at him. Okay. Anybody else is taking this seriously. Unfortunately, there's some good people out there now.
Yeah. And, it's hard because, the people are challenging theories with theories, and we're all studying and trying to understand everything. But yet my theory is stronger than your theory. Therefore, since my ego is bigger than your ego, your theory is wrong. That's essentially the argument as a trained investigator.
Yes, I would agree.
Looking for evidence and being involved for almost 8 years now in all the things that I thought, should be true and accurate, and reviewing all the top of the line UFO claims and evidence and all this other stuff. I have yet to see anything that, without misinterpreting it, that could be solid enough to say one way or another. So it's still out in the air. It's still out in the open. But what about the belief? Because you have have you ever, we only got 2 minutes before we have to hit our commercial break, but have you ever had an opportunity, seeing something that you know through your research that it's identified, but yet you cannot convince the believers that it's otherwise. The strength.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've always had that challenge that even though you can prove them dead in the face that this is an airplane, they have that belief so strong that it's not, and they will argue you and say,
truly misidentified.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was a trained observer. Part of my job in the Navy, I was a trained observer. Okay. And you'd be surprised what the other people on the ship were thinking they were seeing, but you got to be trained a certain way. But it's goofy. It's goofy with people. They want to wrap their head around something. And it goes into any other thing about somebody goes out here and sees something phenomenal that's beyond belief, and suddenly they start labeling it with religious overtones and all this stuff. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Okay. All right. So we'll pause right here, but we will continue after a message from our professional partners. If you're listening to the audio only replay, head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association to see the video that goes with this audio. This includes the after chat where I will share some TESA updates and I will talk about some current investigations that I'm working on. Tonight, I will be talking about Canada's new Sky Project and what that means for UFO investigations in Canada. So they're opening up an investigation similar to the United States, and that was announced yesterday, and no one seems to be talking about it, so I'm going to be talking about it tonight. So remember, you are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we will be right back. Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Have you ever experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid? Head over to experienceyoursupport.org and click the purple button on the top right corner and click Submit a Report. The more reports we get, the more we will understand this phenomenon and how it affects our people. And let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for these reports, I would not be able to do what we do. And for that, I thank you. All right. So I didn't get to ask my question of why are you the way that you are, but you kind of explained that a bit. So without repeating, is there anything, that you haven't shared yet that might explain how you became this UFO Researcher of the Year in 2018? Because I kind of want to get into how that happened and then talk in this back half about the data and how important that is, what you've learned. And these books that you've been writing. You said over 50 books towards this. So how did you get to that starting point to the first book?
Okay. I told you about stuff when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Told you about something that happened in 1964 with my parents. We saw this sphere.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
After we saw the sphere, I was about 9th grade. We went ahead and my mother and I started reading books on the topic matter. And I'd get a book. I'd tell her what I read. And if she got a book, she'd tell me what she'd read. Okay. I went in the service in 1970, right out of high school. And one of the things that happened there was they were screening a whole bunch of us for security clearances. And they gave us a list of like this 150 organizations you couldn't be a member of and have a security clearance. And MUFON was on the list. They'd only been around 2 years, but they were on the list. And NICAP and all this stuff, they were on there too. So I kind of played it close to my chest. I just figured I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not really out and visible about this stuff. And then, so I served in the Air Force in Vietnam. And then I was out because of hardship with my family. They had a flood hit their town and wipe out the house and everything. I got out to help them. And then in 1974, I went in the Navy. They put me through 2 years of school, special electronics school, very high-tech stuff related to submarines and what we do in submarines. And I became an analyst for electronic data. And then they figured out I had a dark room, so they sent me to periscope photography school. I was a boy in those days, folks. Okay, so they put me through all this stuff, and that's what I did. Okay, can't tell you where, can't tell you how, but the bottom line is that was my experience with that. So I again played it close to my chest. Get out of the Navy, all total about 10 years service altogether. Go to work for Lockheed Martin, 32-year career with them. Again, I was under clearances. Okay. And no, I didn't work at Skunk Works. I worked in the IT division of the company, and Lockheed Martin has the largest Microsoft platform in the world. Okay. So, biggest network in the world. Okay. So that was what I did. When I got out of the Lockheed Martin in 2011, I went to work for a newspaper. I was in their technical department because officially I was an electronic technician. Okay. Went to work in their technical department, and I was finishing a 40-year-old bachelor's degree. All right. So I've been working for them for about a year and a half or so. Came home one night about 3:00 in the morning. We had just put the morning edition to bed. Okay. And I just put down the garage door, and I used to stand there in the driveway looking up at the North Star if it was a clear sky, and look at the Big Dipper, that kind of thing. Just kind of old monastery stuff. Let the crap of the evening kind of fall off of you, a light meditation type of thing. And I started hearing this humming, buzzing, pulsing sound. And I looked up above me, and there was like this triangular darkness. The stars were being blotted out. By the time this got over me, I estimate it was maybe 1,500, 2,000 feet above the ground. It looked to be over a football field long, about 2, maybe 3 stories deep. Had the three big white things on the bottom of the red light, the classic triangle. Okay, I didn't even know that kind of ship existed. In all my reading, I had never seen that kind of thing talked about. And it went over. I think it was flying 40, 50 miles an hour, just casually going off to the northwest. Okay. 8 months later, I'm running a newspaper column for the Syracuse New Times about UFOs. It rattled me enough to come out of my shell. And because I was finishing a degree in writing, entertainment writing, I went around and started pitching editors. And I got laughed out of the office, chased out of the office, escorted to the door by security out of the office, that kind of thing. And they didn't want to talk to me. That's silly. That's ludicrous. We can't get here from there. Oh, it's stupid. Are you a poop nut or a crackpot? That kind of stuff. And then Larry Dietrich, who was the editor-in-chief over at Syracuse New Times, he knew me because he had worked at the other newspaper that I worked for. He was the senior copy editor. He retired, and he got the head job over at the New Times. He said, "Come on over. I heard you're out pitching. Come on over. Let's talk." Mm-hmm. So obviously these guys were all talking about me. So I get over there to talk to him. We talked. We're about the same age. We had read all the same books from the mid 60s up to early 70s era. He was clearly grounded in the topic. He says, "I'm sympathetic. I can't write that column, but you can. I'll try you out for a month."
Okay.
A month later, he calls me up, and he's got this Dread Pirate Roberts kind of voice. "Get over here. We need to talk." Okay, I figured it was all over. I get over there. I'm 10 minutes late to the meeting. Walk in. All the columnists are sitting around this board table. I walk in 10 minutes late because the parking is terrible in their parking lot. And I walk in. He stops talking to him, looks at me, points at me, and says, "There's our rock star." I'm going, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You've been here a month and you're pulling more web page views than all the columnists combined. We got a hit here. Just keep doing it." All right, fine. So they hooked me up with the digital editor since it was on the electronic edition, and that was my go-to person. I was never hired as an employee. I was always hired as a freelance. Okay. So I was given a great deal of freedom. And in the end, when the paper went out of business 7 years later, as a lot of newspapers are, the publisher allowed me to come in and get all my final edited versions of the articles off their server because technically I owned them. Mm-hmm. So I ended up publishing a book that had all my articles in it. Okay. 238 articles. Okay. All about UFOs, sometimes a little bit about the UFO politics. There was one full page ad to the New York State congressional delegation. We want congressional hearings on UFOs, that kind of thing. I interviewed a lot of people. And initially all I did was tell stories. And then the second year I was writing the column, I had gone to a conference down in Arizona. The first year I was down there on press credentials. And this is important because they had the Congress, the meeting, the conference meetings and everything started at 9 o'clock, went to about 5 o'clock in the afternoon with a lunch break. But in the program, there was this thing at the bottom that said 7 o'clock in the morning to 8:30, an experiencers meeting. This is private, no press allowed. Okay. Second year I was there, I went to the psychologist who acted as a moderator for this group. I said, I would like to learn. I'm not going to out anybody. I'm not going to write about what they tell me. I'll leave my press credentials upstairs. I just want to come in and learn. She said, fine. So my spouse and I went down there. Now, I had believed some of the stuff I saw up in the upper cable channels, oh, I got probed and they did this and they did that, And so I expected to meet 25 or 30 people crying in their coffee. They got probed. Okay. That was my expectation. We go into this meeting. We're a couple minutes late. We get into the meeting. There's 150, 175 people in this meeting. It's got all the energy of a tent revival. Yeah. These people are up. They're motivated. They're saying, hey, this thing happened to me. ET's really cool. They told us to take care of our planet. Tell us your story too. And everybody owned up and told their little experiencer story. And that gave me a completely new view on this stuff. So I wrote about it, but not about them. Okay. After I did a couple of articles like that, I started having people invite me to backyard barbecues. Now I would go over there with a security guard to make sure it's not a lynch mob or something, I'd get there and we'd quickly figure out it's a backyard barbecue. It's a family reunion. I got a burger and a beer in my hand about 2 minutes later. And okay, fine. And they would always take me aside and say, we want you to meet Uncle Ralph. He flew in B-29s and he saw Foo Fighters in the war or something like this. And in at least two situations, a family matriarch would take me in the house quietly, set me down on a couch, open up a family album back to points where there's pictures in there that are on tintypes, and said, our family's been touched for 4, perhaps 5 generations. Okay. And I got to sit down with certain members of the family who were willing to talk to me. And I had put certain restrictions, no first names, nothing that would reference the family. Okay. And it appears ET has been studying some family lines for generations. Okay. And it turns out there's a lot more to it than just that. I've had women come to me, sit down, break into tears, and say, I've got to tell you something very personal. I read your column. I think you'll be sympathetic. And I would explain what. And they would say, 8 years ago, I was abducted. Okay. They tell me a little bit about that story. I said, fine. I was taken again a couple of months ago, and they introduced me to my hybrid children. Okay. And these people were being incredibly sincere. Okay. And I'm going, whoa, this is interesting stuff. And then once the word got around, I was a sympathetic ear. I got approached by a lot of people that sat down and had a heart-to-heart talk with me. And I said, God, why can't I get these people in front of a therapist and, shape a few therapist heads, but it's much more common than a lot of people believe. Think about Whitley Strieber. They had over 200,000, him and his wife had over 200,000 letters sent to them after he put his book Communion out there. Okay. I remember in the 80s, I was in B. Dalton Books. They don't exist anymore. In Manassas, Virginia. I was in the store, and this friend of mine and I saw this big display with hardback copies of Communion on the rack. And I stood a nice, comfortable 20 feet from it, and I wasn't going to go any closer. And my friend looked at me and says, you aren't going to go up and take a look at the book? I said, no. He said, neither am I. I said, what do you think of the alien on the front? He says, they got the eyes right. Mm-hmm. This is more common than people think.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that too, because with my study, kind of coming back into like the whole, like some people see it, some people don't. and there's different types of evidence. So, I get people, there's testimony evidence, which is great. What everybody wants is that smoking gun, that picture and that video, or better, that video. But I focus a lot on getting drawings, because even though they took a picture and it may not appear, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's transmedium or they missed it, but they still see it in their mind.
Yep.
So when I work through them and I get these drawings, and I'm starting to find some images that look similar to these drawings, but I can also tell that these people don't know each other and they're from different places of the world, and they're using different methods of their of consciousness connection, I guess, whether they're sleeping or astral travel or intentionally meditating. So they have that in common, because they're just doing different, they're using their mind to go someplace, but when they go to that place and that data that's received, they're drawing similar things, or sometimes identical things.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can go there for a moment with you.
Yeah, let's go.
I've taught over the last 25 years, I've taught about 5 or 6 remote viewing classes. These are not classes like a one afternoon thing. This is like twice a month for 6 months or a year. Okay. And every one of my classes were exposed to the target cards we had were randomly packed for us into envelopes. It's another third party put the serial numbers on them all. Okay. And there were about 8 or 10 cards that I always made sure that the people packing them made sure they put in, but I have no idea where those cards went in the stack. So they come back to me and I get this big bag of 150, 200 target envelopes. Okay. And every class that I taught eventually had that target of the alien base on the back side of the moon card. And they're coming back. They're all drawing something very similar. They have no idea what the target is. Okay. And we had one woman, whenever she went a target like that, she'd come out of put our pens down. They'd put their pens down and everything. And I just simply acted as proctor. And she would look up and say, whoever those first were, they didn't want us there. Almost every class, somebody made a comment similar to that. Mm-hmm. Okay. That was, for me, one of the most telling things, is the fact that these people had this common experience with this unknown target they were touching. Mm-hmm. And I think there's much more of that can be had. But we also discovered something else with remote viewing. It's not often talked about in the literature, you see. I was using a technique called the away team technique. It was something I was developing. I found out certain people picked up on the emotion of the target. Some people picked up on the physicality. Some people picked up on the emotional energy at the target. Okay. I always locked on to the living being at the target. There was a target card when I was being trained that was of a particular fighter jet. Okay. I didn't know what that target was. All I know is everything I was looking for was in this triangular window type of thing. And it kept changing. And what it ended up being was the stanchions of the cockpit canopy. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, different people pick on different things. So I found out, as I figured out people in my classes, somebody was good with the energetics. Some people was good with the physicality of the geography. Some people were good with the emotions, that type of thing. So I always use an away team, so to speak, use that Star Trek term. And you got different perspectives on the target more than just everybody trying to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I found it quite intriguing. Whenever aliens were involved, if it was sent to a craft or sent to a base or a known place where they frequent, there was always a response back by somebody when they were putting their pens down for the last time at the end of the session. They told us not to come back. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so it's a very deep phenomena, but But again, is that something I can document back to guys like at MUFON who are trying to be very good scientific forensic kind of guys? No, that's the problem. We don't have a amalgamated team looking at all aspects. And that's one of the big problems we've got. We don't have a team looking at all the aspects.
Yeah, and I relate to that. I've created a system and a matrix that would allow a team to be able to do that successfully. However, I don't have the team. It's just me looking at it.
I would like to see a copy of that. I really would.
Yeah, so I already made a note down to kind of show you my ultraspectrum classification system. I share those thoughts where, like, how many unknowns become a known? Like, and even in this real world, if you will, and I relate this to back in the day when I used to do crime scene, investigations and whatnot. Everybody sees things different, and
oh yeah, big time.
Even if it's like a physical crime and you're speaking to multiple witnesses, they don't remember all the details. But if you talk to every single witness and you are able to identify what details you need to make up that persona or to make up that suspect that you're looking for,
puzzle, isn't it?
It puts the piece together, and then you find your suspect, and then you find other evidence to corroborate. But that's what you need. You got to get little bits and pieces from everyone. Not one person's going to tell the whole story. And oftentimes when we get these testimonies, it's their story is great, but it's not combined. So witness testimony is a great tool to use, but unless you're compiling all that together, it's kind of redundant.
You're right. It's all anecdotal.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason the New York Times did an article about, let me pull this out for you. This is our first book that we put out in 2017, UFO Sightings Desk Reference. Okay. The artwork on the front, I showed 4 or 5 different UFO flying saucer type shapes to an artist friend of mine. And I said, I don't want commercial art. I want you to do a pencil art on the 5 or 6 of them and let me see what you got. I want it to look like, and when we ink it, I want it to look like you sketched it with a Sharpie on the back of a pizza box or somebody's napkin because you were interviewing somebody.
Right.
Okay. And that's what we got. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we ended up getting a Science Magazine article in April of 2017 by the New York Times, because Ralph Blumenthal, who was one of the guys who broke the A-tip story, took 2 copies of this in, threw them on the editor's desk, said, I know why we don't report UFOs. It's all anecdotal stories. He said some old ladies in Syracuse did the science. Okay. So the papers are sick listening to this anecdotal stories as well. Now, something I saw at the Arizona conference, there was a guy there who said people who claim to be touched by ET can't do much about it years from now. But if they come up to you and say it's happened in the last couple of days or something like this, then get them in a dark room, get out a good black light. And we're not talking the little fluorescent one down at Spencer's. We're talking about these good, powerful LED ones that are about this big. You can buy them on Amazon for about $12, $15 and go over there and go into them. And suddenly you're finding people with 3-finger iridescent prints on them. You're finding dots on them in like somebody left evidence of an inspection, on them, that type of thing. There's your evidence.
Yes, but there are ways to leave that stuff behind as well too. So you gotta so that type of evidence, and I'm familiar with that process too. And the the fluorescence usually lasts 24 to 48 hours. So that's something you have to obtain and collect.
I told you 24 to 48 hours.
Well,
you can't wash it off, and it takes about a week to wear off the skin.
Really? Well,
yeah.
People I talk to, I haven't been able to actually get them to recover any physical evidence based on their claims. So you've obviously met individuals that
yes
have been able to provide. So you're speaking from your experience. From my experience, I haven't been able to see that.
Okay,
But-
the expertise on it right now, and I went back to the guy who told us about it, and he said you can't wash it off. He says, trust me, you won't be able to wash it off, and you're not washing it off. After about a week, it might come off when you're in the shower, not because you washed it off, because you're sloughing off the dead skin.
Right.
Okay, take an alcohol pad to it; it doesn't come off.
Has a biological sample ever been taken to measure it?
I only saw the stuff. I was not in a position to say, "Can we get a skin sample?" You know.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So that's why I'm trying to. That's the other thing too, and problems that I've seen as well, is that not the right questions are asked, or the evidence isn't collected at the right time, and then it's just too late.
Thank you. And
Okay.
there's no chain of evidence. The whole thing.
No,
I agree. I agree.
And,
Yeah.
and my experience with how I collect evidence and what I do with that, and every time I ask for that, the evidence doesn't exist. And I would love to be in an opportunity where it's like, hey, I was visited last night and I have fluorescence on my arm and I'm coming to your house tomorrow. Perfect. Let's document it because I know what you need to do and I know how to. And that was my main work with MUFON, was actually explaining the forensics and all that other stuff and how it would work and how important, how critical it was, and how easy it was for them themselves to contaminate or to lose the best evidence.
Oh, yeah.
Collect it within the first 48. And that's not just a TV show. Like it's legitimate. You know, you need to get it before it's contaminated. And so my overall analysis,
a lot of times the people who've been touched won't own up to you for weeks or months or years, you know, and that's part of the problem too, you know.
And it does, and that's the thing with the Experience for Sport Association. We want to believe people, and on the investigative side of things, I need that evidence. I need that stuff right away. So
I know someone
yeah.
that keeps coming up with these scratches on their body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you put antibiotic on it, it doesn't go away. You end up having to get this stuff that is just, the doctor gave this stuff to us for this, for like, as if it's an allergic reaction. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a scratch that's like within 24 hours, bright red. Okay. And it might disappear on the arm or on the leg or wherever, maybe over a couple of days. Put an ultraviolet light on there. It's there in the deep skin as a trauma for months.
Mm-hmm.
And one suggestion to you on that, you get them in a dark room and you start doing the physical exam, and you'll find these deep, might not even show up on the surface, but if they've been scratched or something like that, the inflammation is still under the skin.
Interesting. And then you can take a biological sample and you can send that out for
Thank you.
Right.
And it's my doctor said it looked like an allergic reaction. And in my own case, where I've had those myself, I've had to literally buff my fingernails down. Okay. So I have no sharp edges before I go to bed. I can't possibly scratch myself and have that, and then have something like that happen. So.
Okay. So we got
go ahead.
15 minutes left. I have two big questions that I want to ask. Well, hopefully I'm able to get both of them in time.
Please do.
But the first one is with all the studying that you've done, with all the research that you've compiled, what is your opinion on what the phenomenon is? What do you know? What do you believe now, based from your experience in the research?
There is hardware. Okay. And I personally believe, from everything I've seen over 60 years, okay, some of it is hardware, some of it is manifestation. Okay, remember, which person we turn thought into form. Okay, you go into deep Buddhism, you're talking about turning emptiness into form and form back into emptiness. Okay, that's how it's discussed. All the deep mystical stuff talks about that way. And some of it's hardware, some of it is manifestation. A manifestation is something, think about like ball lightning suddenly appears here. Okay, fine. That is a physical manifestation. There are others where I think a majority of people who are touched are being touched psychically, since we're all connected to the same juice. You know, they go into our mind. It almost seems like, I'm talking to a number of other experiences, it almost seems like they're here this month. Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, they're here this month. What's it seem like to you? It seems like they got us like in the rat maze kind of thing. They keep putting me through this scenario of games I have to play. Okay, it's like they're psychological anthropologists or something. That's what it seems like.
Interesting. I've talked to some experiencers that have played those games as well on ships and stuff as well. I find that possible. Like, I mean, anything's possible, but I mean, in terms of a balance of probability to what might be happening, that could be very well what is going on. I have a member's question. I'm not really sure I understand it, but it says, do you have any good bubblehead stories, SSN-705? Do you know what that means?
Okay, that is a fast attack nuclear submarine.
Okay.
705. I'm not familiar with that particular boat. I was on SSN-685. Okay, it was a configuration 4 637 class. We were the only one like us. We were like 150, 200 feet longer than other submarines. But no, I don't know anything about 705.
Well, that makes sense. Neither do I, because I'm Army, not Navy, so I didn't really understand any of that stuff. Okay.
But the funny thing is about Navy, no, it doesn't have anything to do with UFOs.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Just finish your thought.
Creepy things happen on ships.
Okay.
And sometimes the older the ship, the creepier it gets. Okay.
Yeah, my guards had to secure a site that has a reverence or some what do you call it? The remains of an old ship, and I personally been in that room, and I can feel things. So I believe that. I don't know why, but but I just know it's enough that they. I make them secure it, not me.
Back in the day, I had a flirtation with EVP. You know what that is?
Yeah, electronic
voice phenomena. Okay.
Yep.
And I took a cassette recorder. They were decommissioning part of a base that I was on. Okay. And so there was all these derelict buildings. And one of them was a small gymnasium that was suitable for handball, tennis, that type of thing. Okay. And I left my recorder in there on the floor for about an hour. And I went away, sat about a half a block away and just watched the building. Okay. Came back, got the recorder, played the stuff back, and sat there and listened to somebody's game. The kind of the banter you have when you're playing like tennis or something like that. I heard all this stuff going on in there. But nobody had gone in that building. Okay. So I like to think that there's overlap in time issues. If those weren't ghosts, okay, if they were not ghosts, that the fabric between our moments and those moments are very delicate.
Mm-hmm. And I've always said, and I believe, that it either all exists or none of it exists. You can't have, you can't say UFOs exist and ghosts don't. Like, so there's a lot that goes into the yes.
Our culture tends to, our whole education system, particularly higher academia, tends to stovepipe everything. Okay. And I asked a whole bunch of professors at one place, I said, how are you guys going to deal with galactic studies when we do have disclosure? And they laughed me out of the room. But I approached them. I said, where are you going to stick it? Are you looking, is the physics department going to take charge because of the advanced physics, or do we need to look at it from an anthropological sense? I mean, where's your multidiscipline thing? UFOlogy, and Linda would tell you this if she was here. Back in the day when she was working on at the Environmental Protection Agency, she was the head librarian for the toxicology library for 15 years. Okay. And nobody had a degree in environmental science in those days, in the beginning years. It didn't exist. UFOlogy is at the same state. We don't have a degree in UFOlogy. Okay. So you get this whole thing of people, you say, where are you gonna put this? And I've approached colleges and I said, I would send my notice of willing to come and give one of my conference grade presentations and share my data, because they're always screaming, oh, there's no science. Well, I got science here. Mm-hmm. Let me come and show you our evidence. And science is about finding evidence. Okay. And evidence can be found with data, and they won't have us. But I always sent the invitation to the sociology department, the anthropology department, the physics department, and the earth sciences department. And usually I'll tag the philosophers as well, because their world's going to get rattled when these guys show up and say, the ET shows up and says, hold my beer, you know? Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. On the other hand, we keep hearing about the invisible college, all those professors that are not vocal about it and laugh at the rest of us, but they know something. Mm-hmm. But let's go here. Linda and I have published the largest collection of compiled, analyzed, and published UFO data in human history. Okay, not stories. We're talking data. The pink book there and the white book there with the little flying saucer on it, those were our reference data. That was the United States down to the county level, the 3,135 counties. Okay, the new series called the UFO Scholar State Statistics series. That book down there, down below. See that orange one? That's one of them. That's a southern state. Okay, the green ones are Midwest states. Okay. And each of them is titled the same. The blue one, those are the New England states. The books are all titled UFOs in whatever your state is. So UFOs in Ohio and where to find them. UFOs in Texas and where to find them. And we kept them very inexpensive, but it's got all of our best papers plus detail in the back of the book for your state's data right down to the county or the county, zip code, and village level in the back of the book. Okay, for your state. There's the map right here. That one map. You see those white spots on that black map? The black are all the counties that had UFO sightings 2001 to 2020. Those white spots are the 105 counties that did not have UFOs reported. The next one you see there, the other United States map, the dark spots are all the, I'm sorry, not the dark spot. Yeah, the dark spots are all the zip codes that have had UFO sightings. 18,605 had UFO sightings of the 141,690. Okay. People there on that chart. The top chart was people said when we came out with our first book, why didn't you go back 40 years, Cheryl? That's the golden age of UFOs. So we went back to 1960 and took it up to 2000. And that other chart you saw next to it, that other graph, that's the 21st century on the far right-hand side. And all that stuff you saw up above is just barely discernible down here on the bottom. Okay. Right now, we are in the freaking platinum or diamond age of UFO sightings. I personally believe ET is pushing disclosure. Every time they try to cover something up, something better comes along. And there's my magic book up there at the top, where I talk about the woo-woos of magic.
Right there.
Yeah, it's Magical Musings of a Rogue Witch.
We're going to just spend a couple minutes just to go over time just a little bit, just to end this properly, if that's okay. We don't need to cut it right away, but
sure.
One of the questions I did want to ask before we did final thoughts too is, on top of all this other stuff that you collected, you're well versed on it, you know what's going on, you've done your studies. With the recent stuff happening in American ufology up into this recent, shoot down of 4 objects, what is your opinion on that in comparison to what's really going on?
Well, one, they weren't paying attention to slow moving objects, for one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And nobody was paying attention to stuff above 40,000 feet and what we call space. There was that gray zone that they weren't looking at. And there was a lot of balloons up there, a lot of other technology up there, research projects and things. But again, they keep trying to distract us with, oh, it's a balloon. 6 months ago, they told us, oh, it's Chinese drones. Well, tell me how we've got Chinese drones here in Cleveland.
Right.
Okay. Cleveland, Ohio. This doesn't make sense. Okay. Chinese drones weren't out flying our aircraft with the Nimitz. Okay. And this is what we're up against, is this fact that they keep trying to blow it off. I reached out to Senator Rubio. This is 2 years ago. I reached out to him. He got a copy of our pink book. Okay. It's a 2.5 pound book. He got I didn't have it complete. It's equivalent to what we just generated. I generated Florida. It's the number 2 state, 17,000 sightings, right? I printed it out right down to the zip code, everything they had. There's no stories. It's just line after line of data organized by county, zip code, hamlet, and what shapes they saw over 20 years. Okay. And I printed him that out. He got a 2-pound package because he was at the time the head of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. I found out who his equivalent was over in the House, and I sent him, he was a New Yorker, I sent him a pink book, and they both got a very terse, very short front page cover letter that said, if you guys decide to have congressional hearings, we are the civilian experts with the data. We will be happy to come and share what we have learned. And we've learned a lot. Okay. And, and when they started the hearings, a guy by the name of Andre Carson in Indiana was heading up the things. He got a similar package from us, me and Linda. And we have yet to be called for a congressional hearing. We published the largest collection of UFO data, 50 books. We had them all built. We started putting them up on Amazon on Halloween last year, finished by the 27th of December. Okay, 6 weeks. Got it all up, 6-7 weeks. And we reached out to over 150 papers. 4 did a story about us. Chris Mellon, who used to be high in the Defense Department, works close with Lou Elizondo. Okay, he was lamenting back in December. We've got all this great stuff going on in Congress right now with hearings and all kinds of stuff being passed in Congress to support this stuff. Did you know that MUFON has been bipartisan support, selected to be a civilian consultant to the government?
Oh, I know a lot more than that.
But you know what I'm talking about. Okay?
I'm not surprised about that.
Yeah, the politics have been going on for quite some time. But the bottom line is we have reached out with this data, okay? And nobody is talking to us. And I literally had somebody, a very senior in the know person, come to me recently and say, you know, Cheryl, you and Linda are being sat on. They don't want you got great data. They don't want you putting out the scale of it in front of the American people. They don't want to scare the folks.
I appreciate that too. And I just wanted to show real quick, this is just an example of my data set too. When you mentioned that no one's looking at the heights, I'm actually looking at the heights too. And I have a couple graphs here that show the height of these unknown objects. And my sources come from the Civilian Aviation Daily Occurrence Report. So they're from from actual pilots, like, from the Transport Canada and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the same idea. Like,
I applaud that. I'm glad you got that, because I never thought to go and talk to those guys.
Well, if you want data in Canada, I can definitely share it, because I'm in the same boat where the people that are being recognized aren't the people that should be recognized. And my data, in my opinion, of course, but is more superior to the ones that Canada has available to them. So I can share the feeling of being sat on, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm right. It's just, why not look at it as well? Why not look at all the data? Why not look at all the people that put the effort in to solve your questions?
Or as a bunch of us have said, Dr. Condon back in 1968 gave a report to Congress and said, you don't need to spend any money on this. So the military and everybody stopped. There was no money for government agencies. If there was any money, it was hidden in a black program someplace. Okay. But I truly believe they shut it all off. Air Force wanted out of it. Okay. So here we are now with things like the Nimitz. If any of the stuff the Nimitz saw back in the early 2000s had a Chinese marking or a Russian marking, there would have been a dozen of these little intel agencies that work within the Pentagon all over it like flies on poop.
Yeah. Okay.
But because it was related to something that was flying circles around our aircraft, now UFO, it's got a stigma. We don't want to besmirch the reputation of our agency to go and investigate something silly like that. Mm-hmm. See, the stigma has worked against us. Me as a former defense analyst, yes, it's worked against us in a big way. Mm-hmm. So I remember I interviewed in Laughlin, Nevada, a couple of years in 2019. I interviewed some of the guys from the Princeton. It was the radar ship with the Nimitz carrier group for that incident. Those guys were in combat information, and they had their reality changed. It was like they were in the middle of a science fiction movie, and everything they believed about the universe was suddenly changing before their eyes. They came back, and I interviewed a couple of them, and they couldn't tell anybody. They couldn't tell their spouse. They couldn't go to the base chaplain. They couldn't go to the base psychologist. Their whole reality had been rattled. Some of these guys almost lost their marriages because when somebody gets twitchy like that, sooner or later your wife says, okay, who is she?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so this is what was going down. And the fact that we get this discussion going now, it's high visibility, and Congress is asking, hey, we want square answers, and they're not getting them. Back in 2019, I was called by some of our lobbyists in D.C. and told that Senator, this is before we knew about COVID, okay, and said in 2019, Rubio's going to attach a bill to some kind of continuing spending package to get congressional hearings going. You women are the only people who have ever published this kind of research data. Are you willing to testify before Congress? Now, me and Linda initially were going, oh, Jesus, we were both federal contractors. You work your whole career hoping not to have to testify before Congress. You know what I mean? And so we said, yeah, okay, fine. And that's why we sat there and talked about it. And we said, we know what congressional hearings look like. We want people to know a couple women did this book. So we made it bright fuchsia. You can flag in an aircraft with this thing. Okay. But the thing is, they're not calling us. The other thing I told the lobbyists, I said, what's going to happen? Yeah, we're going to get congressional hearings through. And it's going to be a parade of Defense Department spooks. And it's going to be a whole bunch of swaggering pilots. And up until recently, that's all it's been. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now last week, they did talk to one of the former missilemen, a guy by the name of Salas, who was one of the guys who was a missile officer in the Montana missile silos. And he was one of the guys that was there when the UFOs came down and shut off 10 of their missiles.
Right.
Okay. And they did interview him. And I'm glad they did, because he's sick. And a lot of these other guys had died. So we're losing evidence by the day of the old school evidence. Yeah. And they got to come clean about this sooner or later. They really do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like we could keep going and going and going,
to death. Yeah.
but we do have to. We went 10 minutes over our agreed time for.
Let me give you one last answer then.
I'm going to say, yeah. Final thoughts. What do you?
All of the above. It's hardware. It's manifestation. It's woo manifestation. Is it real or is it Memorex? That kind of thing. Is it vaporware? Is it just in our minds? Remember, we're connected to all the consciousness everywhere, every when. Somebody more powerful can put that thought in us.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so where can everybody find you? Where are you going next? And then I'll and then I'll close the show.
Linda and I are going to be speaking at the McMenamins UFO Fest in Portland, Oregon. Next couple of months, May, I believe. I'm going to be. We're going to both be speaking at Roswell at the Roswell incident in June, July timeframe. I'm going to be speaking at Contact in the Desert in Palm Springs. Okay, and I'm doing a mystical conference called the Mystical Tribes. It's in Ohio. It's in Illinois. And I'm going to be going there and I'm going to be talking about the high physics of magic. So that's what the rest of my year looks like. And if you want my books, if you want our books, go to Amazon Books, go up to book search, do a book search, put Costa UFO, and you'll find everything we've published on UFOs.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
We'll be in touch. All right, everybody. It's time to go. Unless you're interested in hearing some of the latest updates from the Experiencer Support Association, or if you want to pick my brain a bit about some ongoing investigations, stick around for the after chat. I will get to the questions that haven't been answered, some of those things in there as well. Thank you, Cheryl, for your time. You might get 2 emails. You're going to get one email as per usual when we say thank you to the guests, and I'm just going to send you another email that highlights some of my work. And I'd be really interested in your opinion on it because I feel like we're on the same page. And I don't think UFOs have borders. So, we got to, if we work together, there might be some things from that. So thank you so much for coming out. If you guys are listening to the audio only replay, your show ends here. And you'll have to head over to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association so you see the video with this audio. And if you want to follow my work, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. So thanks for watching. Keep your eyes in the sky and heed the world.
That's it, everybody. That is a wrap. That is the end of it all. Thank you for joining me tonight. I look forward to seeing you back next week, where we'll continue to have this conversation deep down into the rabbit hole in which we call the Ultra Spectrum. Thanks for joining us. I said that already. Oh well, fuck it. Heed the world.
everybody. It is the after chat. Hello. Let me say hello to everybody. That was a good show. I wanted to keep her on longer, but I also wanted to be mindful of the time for everybody else, Chris included, because he's only scheduled till 10. So let's figure this one out. So let's say hello to the people in the chat. Christy and Houghton. Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Christian Morales. Hello. What's up? How much, man? I'm just thanks for joining in. I don't recognize you two, so you must be two new members. So thanks for subscribing. Logan, hello. I wish you well as well. Hope you got all your work done, sir. What else we got going on? Biz Nugs. Hello, Biz Nugs. Good to see you. Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How you doing? Weltram, as always, being a member. Thank you so much. What else we got here? And Logan waving hi here. Okay. Any questions that did not get answered? So if you guys have questions, ask them now. And I'm just going to take a quick look. And thank you, Chris, for starring these. Chris, if you have opinions, you bring yourself in. You can talk to me. If not, I'm talking to the group. Let me see here. So Christian says, yo, can I ask something? What can I do if I suspect that a loved one is an experiencer? Man, that's tough. And then to continue on that thought, he says, last thing I'll say about my case is the only reason I take this topic seriously is because I saw 4 UAPs this summer with my loved one. Every time for 2 years, she talked about them and nothing then 2022. And then he said, either the phenomenon is distracting, drastically increasing, or it's connected to her. I don't know, but it's a rabbit hole. And if it's real, what can I do? It's not like, and then you said, I apologize. That's it. Let's enjoy the show. So don't apologize for venting. You were, or speaking your mind, you were, we just couldn't answer those in the middle of that, which is why we have the after chat. So let me break this down. What can I do if I suspect that a loved one is an experiencer? So, I mean, you can console them and you can listen to them. It depends on I guess the nature of the experience. Like there's a lot of things that you can do, but if you don't, are you looking for answers or you want to get kind of an idea of what is happening specifically for the experience, you can refer there to the Experiencer Support Association. So on our website has a lot of resources as well. So as an experiencer, so the website is experiencersupport.org. I'll put that in the comments for you. But there's an experiencer tab. So if you go to this experiencer tab and you explore these options here, these are good resources for experiencers in general. We have Experiencers Anonymous, which is a private support group. We have Experiencer Day, which is something we put on every year on December 9th. We have some experiencer resources that we add to this. And of course, we have private and open discussion groups. So those alone create environments in which you can just talk about these experiences so you can learn and grow with each other and start to understand what is going on. On the investigative side, where I'm really trying to figure out what it is, it's not so friendly in a sense, because I need to rule out a whole bunch of things, but there's a lot of passion and compassion with the experiencer side of things. And I would recommend you start there, which is why I created this organization in the first place, to create those resources for people. We can. Chris is asking if we're still ending at 10. I said we can, but if you want to go later, or if you want to go, you can go. It's up to you. I'll leave that up to you. I just want to get through to what everybody else said. So I hope that helped your question there, Christian. If you're still in the chat, say hello. Biznug says, I've had experiences of both and interdimensional. It's too out there to disclose to anyone other than family and close friends. My reality is different than others. It pits me on mind's eye. What did you say? Mind's eye? So the fact that you're talking about your experiences is a great thing. Keeping it, I've always thought that keeping it on the inside creates pain and trauma. And when you're holding it in and you don't have a safe place to discuss it, that creates some emotional feelings and physical feelings too. my thought process has always been being able to talk about it would be a good thing. So if you don't want to talk with me here, you don't want to share it here, you know, there's private discussions and there's lots of other groups that you could share it to. But the most important thing is that you just talk about it. You can write about it. You can journal it. You can do a podcast about it. There's so many things that you could do. And is it interdimensional? That's what I'm trying to figure out. You know, a lot of the time people have these experiences and they remember it and it's so vivid in their mind. They got no evidence, but they know they've seen it, myself included. I've had an experience where I saw this image in my mind, and it was this map, which we call the Tesla map, which you can find on our website. Let me, if you go to our website and go to symbols and icons, just click that page here. This is my experience. This was something I saw in my mind or in reality, but I couldn't tell which dimension it was in, but I had to draw it and, you know, and things like that. So sometimes that stuff happens and that could be interdimension, who knows, but where's the dimension? Like what dimension are we in and how, you know, where is the inter? Are we going up? Are we going out? So there's a rabbit hole of things there that we could discuss. But so if you're in the chat, you know, elaborate on that and I'll add some more. Yeah. Okay. Chris, I see your comments. You can end the show whenever you feel like it. You just tell me to shut up. You just play the music and then I know it's time to go. What do we got here? I feel silly not knowing that the SSN was a vessel. I should have known that, but I'm glad. I'm glad that we had an expert there to speak on that. Let me see here. Okay, so BizNubs, you asked the same thing. Do you have any information on who an experiencer could talk to help them cope or understand what they went through? So as an experiencer, you should be selective to who you choose to talk to and what information you share. As an investigator, when you submit a report, I'll be asking specific questions. So for those of you who want to submit a report and want my opinion, you just go to the website and click submit a report up here, answer those questions. And that's something that I can do as well. And if I get that report and I will make referrals to proper coping mechanisms based on the information you provide. That's how that works. But I don't want you to report to me unless it's the right fit. You have to figure out exactly what answers you're looking for, what kind of help you might need. And within this reporting system, you'll be able to answer those questions and kind of guide us to what you need. But if you're in general, not to one source, as an experiencer, you should report to or talk to at least as many people as you want or as you can, so you get a variance of opinions, a variance of backgrounds, a variance of understanding. Interviewing Costa was very easy to do because we were having a conversation, but it is a learning curve for me, acknowledging the fact that there's some experience and there's information that she knows that I haven't learned yet. And we haven't had a chance to get into that, which is where we're going to, start sharing notes and stuff like that too. So my recommendation is for you to report to or talk to as many people as you trust, collect as many opinions on the situation, and formulate your own opinion on what is happening to you. Be open to the idea of debunking some things or ruling some things out so we can have accurate data. Don't be afraid to challenge it, because we need to have accurate information in order to help other people. And also by coming forward to your experience might encourage other people to share their experience, and there might be something you have in common. What we have in common is the fact that we don't have any answers. And we look to the government, we try to trust the government, and they give us some things and they don't give us everything we know. Meanwhile, all these weird things are happening at the same time. So what is that? Well, that's going to be in these books if I ever get a chance to finish these reports. So far, I've only published this book here, which is for the 2020 survey of UFOs in Canada, which I'm working on 2021 and 2022 right now. But I am also focusing on experiencers, as I mentioned, because I want to understand what you guys have in common and why you guys see the same things. Another good resource for you guys on the website, under investigations, if you go to the visual evidence database, You can view all of the investigations that I have completed that I consider to be questionable and unknown, and you simply just find something in your area or close to within these categories, click on one, click learn more, and then watch these recreation videos, read the testimony. Here's some data here and what I'm measuring. If you don't want to make a report, you want to know what I do with the report. This is an example of what happens when I'm done the end of the year. It helps me with my research. So I don't know if that's good for you or good for anyone, but that's how I help. If that's good for you, then I look forward to your reports. If not, just keep watching until you find what you need. And what else we got here? Logan says it's creepy and a lot of energy. I believe that comment would be in response to the Tecumseh boat there. Chris, you're going to break your neck. That's a hard yes there. Careful. It's just headbanging back there. You can bring yourself you want me anytime you want to join this conversation, man. So you can make fun of me too. But Chris, you want to talk about that? You want to talk about that experience? Yeah? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about that experience.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I like I've been there. I get an eerie feeling as well. A lot of energy at that place, around the boat. Yeah, it's nervy.
So explain the energy. What does it feel like?
Well, to me, as an experiencer,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very edgy going into that room.
Okay.
Very edgy. It's just, yeah, I get in, get out of that room.
So for context, for those who don't know, one of our sites has a historical wreckage. That was the word I was looking for. And remains of that are showcased in a display, a large display building.
Large display.
And when you come near it, there is energy from that because there's history. And the reason why we're not saying the names because it's a government contract, it's a private contract, and unfortunately we can't. We're not able to mention that. So.
Yeah, I run in, run out.
Yeah, interesting. Well, you are the guards. The guards are afraid of the ghost. I don't know. I can't help you there. There's been several times I've received reports from my guards where things have been aloof or off at these locations. One of our female employees in the past who had seen a lot of weird activity and made so many reports that, that we had to almost bridge Tessa into blacklight in order to help mediate the possibility of all these things in order to also fulfill a sound report for our clients. So this place is definitely interesting. I felt experiences there in certain places as well. In one of the main buildings that got burnt down in the past, there's the remaining fireplace. Chris, you know where I'm talking about without naming the place? One of the houses that burnt down and the remaining stone fireplace. Yeah. Okay. So I've been upstairs in there and I felt things in that, and I'm still learning these feelings myself because I'm not saying I'm clairvoyant or any of that stuff, but with my experience being somewhat on the psychogenic of the mind, if I were to in tune and focus, I wouldn't be surprised if I'd be able to sense these things, but I wouldn't really trust it because I have that analytical mind and I want to explain a lot of things away. So anyways, that's kind of an interesting thing. Logan says, Chris and I are related to that heritage. GH, what does GH mean? Ghost hunt? Is that a question word? Is that what you mean by that, Logan? And there is so they are native and Aboriginal locations. So there would be some history to that, some violent history as well. So there are a lot of One is a naval establishment. Might have said too much, and you just figure out where I am. But, so there is that history where the idea is people die, their spirit leaves their body, and they hang around the area. No, Logan, that's not the right building. We're not going to label anymore. I'll tell you offline. Or here, I'll type it to Chris and he can tell you. So, So anyways, any other, I'm just kind of, we're still under an NDA for 30 days. So we'll talk about it in 30 days. But, okay, so that's it. We're at 10 o'clock, Chris. That made it to that. If there aren't any questions, you got any questions? You don't see anything? No? Okay. I'm going to talk about that UFO document that I promised. All right? We're going to get into that. And then you just bring yourself in, Chris, when you want. Oh, I brought you in. Didn't even realize. I must have hit the button.
You hit the button, not me.
I said I must have hit it. Oh, Lisa. She says, I will be going on a ghost hunt with my son with a group later this month in a jail. It will be interesting. Awesome. I didn't know
that would be interesting. I would go to that.
Yeah, I didn't know you had a son too. So that's awesome. That's nice. Okay, so what am I talking about? This PowerPoint presentation. Check this out. So the Chris, you can comment if you want. Whatever, just bring yourself in. So this is the Sky Canada project. So this was released 2 days ago. It was linked anonymously to Daniel Otis, which is a journalist from the CTV News. And it comes from the Office of the Chief Science Advisor of Canada. And it's a 9-page slide. So I'm just going to read it and talk about it. So OCSA's Sky Canada project, who is compiling and analyzing UAP observations made by Canadians. So this is a pretty big deal because, and that no one's really talking about because Canada is now taking UFO research seriously. And that could be because of what happened last week or the weeks before with the United States coming in and shooting down these UFOs in our airspace and not having any explanations on what it was. So the timing for this is quite interesting. And it's dated February 2023. So we don't know when this presentation happened, if that was before that incident or after, but it has happened. So Sky Canada project slide number 2, definition and objectives. UAP is unidentified aerial phenomenon. Sky Canada to inquire how UAP reporting is managed in Canada and recommend improvements if necessary. Objectives, identify the key Canadian players and how they deal with UAP observations. Compare the Canadian approach with some G7 country systems. Prepare for potential collaboration with current U.S. initiatives on UAPs. So identified Canadian players. So, their definition of players, I'm not quite sure if that means on the civilian side or internal, because this is internal communication that was leaked anonymously, that we were able to track and find, and Otis was able to get that leak to him by an unknown source. So there's something there. Compare the Canadian approach with some G7 countries. So that one of those being the United States and other countries. So if this UFO problem is a global problem. So the fact that we're working together and Canada's finally catching up, and every time we catch up, we may be behind the States, but every